All right, everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. It's kind of been a while since we last posted, but today is going to be a discussion about really all the topics that I find interesting and topics that I've find fulfillment in terms of learning about. So this is going to be a 1-hour brain dump about a lot of different things related to personal finance, mindset, career, health, happiness, all those different types of things. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Kevin Jin. I am currently based out of Chicago. I work in management consulting with an interest in entrepreneurship, content creation, and everything like that. What gives me credentials to speak? I've hit $100,000 net worth by the age of 22. So I've done a lot of things within the personal finance space, and I've been, investing since I was, I think, around 16 years old when I first got a job at McDonald's working as a cashier, actually. So I've made a lot of strides in the past couple of years, and this video is really just to distill all my knowledge down in a very simple format. And honestly speaking, this is going to be a longer video, but it has a lot of the key teachings that I've learned over the couple of years. And so if you can't really watch this 1-hour video, it's probably going to be harder for you to make it as well. So just keep that in mind. And with that being said, let's get straight to it. So as I kind of mentioned, the first topic is related to personal finance. And going into this, I could give a little bit of a background of my experience. So I grew up in Chicago, in the Chicago suburbs area, and I've kind of always had a desire to make money in terms of like entrepreneurship and providing value to people. So I got involved in consulting because that's kind of where I thought the money was going to be. So currently I work at Alvarez & Marsal. We do private equity, performance improvement consulting for a variety of different companies. The current project that I'm working on is within growth strategy, but before that, I was at Purdue. I studied industrial engineering, and I kind of always knew I wanted to do consulting. So in regards to the personal finance space, there's a lot of different things that I could touch upon, but just given my background, keep in mind that, it might be different from person to person, but the general rules of personal finance, are pretty ubiquitous across all industries and everything like that. The golden rule for personal finance is really just to spend less than you make. If your income is greater than your burn, you are literally considered wealthy, right? So if you think about it, someone who makes $50,000 a year but can live on $20,000 a year, that $30,000 in this hypothetical situation is going towards their savings, their investing, all those different types of things, and is going to help them build wealth over time. Whereas let's say you think about like a corporate executive who, let's say, makes $500,000 a year, but he's spending $700,000 a year buying yachts, going to fancy parties, going to dinner events, everything like that. Arguably speaking, I would say the first person is richer and wealthier than the second person. And the reason is because of that difference. Wealth is all about increasing the distance between the amount that you spend and the amount that you make. And so you could do it in two primary ways. One of them is just simply increasing how much you make. And so that's usually done over time when you get promotions at work, or let's say you're adding value in a business. And I could touch upon that later, but the second one is all about reducing your expenses. So think about all the things that go into your, all the bills that you have to pay. So for example, your mortgage, your car, groceries, utility bill, subscription services, clothing, all those different types of things are things that you might have a monthly expense for. And your goal is to kind of do a personal audit of what you're spending on and seeing the best ways to reduce it. Now, going upon that, there's several different ways that you could do so. I would say the first main thing is looking at your largest expense categories. So those are most likely going to be your mortgage, it's going to be your rent, it's going to be your car payments, it's probably not going to be food, but that's also an area that you could potentially drastically reduce. But for example, your mortgage, that might not be something that you're able to adjust. Your rent also might not be something, but your car payment might be. So for example, a lot of people, what they do is they lease out a car and their car payment ends up being $600 to a couple $1,000 every single month, which is just ridiculous because when you're leasing out a car, you're paying interest on top of the principal that you already owe. And so getting into debt in that sense and paying high interest rates is never going to be good for you. This goes the exact same for any credit card payments. So for credit cards, if you're behind on payments, you're not paying in full, credit card companies charge you anywhere between 15% all the way to 30% in terms of annual interest, which basically means that if you have a $1,000 payment and you don't pay it off within 1 year, it turns into, with a 15% interest rate, that turns into $150 worth of interest. And that's just because you didn't make the payments, which is absolutely crazy. You want your interest to be able to work for you and not against you. So what does that mean? So with the credit card payments, that interest is eating away at your potential savings month after month because you have to pay back that interest, right? That extra money is going towards the credit card company, the car company, all those different types of things. Whereas the other way is, for example, let's say you put your money into a high yield savings account and they give you 4% interest every single year, sorry. Then without even touching your money, you will be able to build up some level of capital within a given amount of time. So let's say, going back to that example, $1,000 invested in a 4% high yield saving account, that means at the end of the year, you make $40 without having to do anything, which is absolutely amazing. And now you have to think about it this way, right? That $40 might not be a lot, but the thing is, percentages scale with capital, right? So in another example, let's say there's a stock market investing, right? On average, the stock market returns 10% every single year over the long run, right? Some years it might be 15%, some years it might be negative 5%, but overall, the long run, it will return 10%. So given this example, let's say you invested $1,000 at the 10% interest rate. That means at the end of the first year, you would make $100, which is pretty good, right? But as we were saying earlier with capital scaling, let's say you invested $100,000, right? Now that 10% will turn into $10,000. So that $10,000 is significantly more than, the $100. And so that's the power of compound interest in a nutshell, right? Capital scales off of exactly how much you put in. And so, we touched upon the interest rates typically being the return on investment typically being around 10% on the stock market. And I think that's a very good benchmark to have for like the average investor, maybe not someone on like Wall Street or, private equity, all those different types of things. But that benchmark right there, 10%, is your golden ratio almost. So any interest that you're paying that's not going towards you, so going away like mortgage, cars, if that interest rate is above 10%, you want to pay that down as soon as possible. Whereas let's say you have student loans that are like maybe 2 to 3%, then for those, it's okay to potentially delay your payments there and pay off the minimum that you can. And so that way you could invest that money into the stock market instead, and technically you're making 7 to 8% instead. So that's kind of how interest works. There's another rule called the rule of 72, which is basically you take whatever interest rate you're earning and then you do 72 divided by that number. So for example, 10% interest rate, 72 divided by 10 would be approximately 7.2. And that 7.2 is the amount of years that it would take for your money to double. So in the stock market, on a 10% interest rate, that means your money will double approximately every 7 years. And that is crazy. If you start investing when you are 16, 17, early 20s, whatever, and your normal retirement age, let's say 65, you want to be better than average, let's say 50 or so, right? That means you'll have 30 years in the stock market, which is 4 cycles of doubling. So right now, you invested $100,000. That will turn into, what is that? 100,000 to the power 4 times 2 to the power 4. That's $800,000 right there. And that's it's over decades, but you're not contributing anything on top of that. And it's still growing and building you wealth over time. And so personal finance, there's a lot of different things that you could kind of go into, but I would say for the regular investor, don't think that you are better than the market. Don't think that you could outsmart people, and just invest consistently and invest often. You don't care about the market positions, right? You want to come in with the mentality that all the money that you're putting in, you're never going to see for the next couple of years or decades, right? So any money that you're putting into your 401k, your savings account, those are all long-term investments that you're not going to touch. You're not going to sell when the market goes down. You're going to keep holding, right? And so that will help reduce the amount of emotions that kind of go into stock market trading, right? Because a lot of times when people see the market is going on a downturn, they panic and they sell. And the golden rule of a stock market is to buy low and sell high, not the exact opposite. So when you're doing stock market investing, invest in a normal S&P 500 a mutual fund or ETF. If you don't know those terms, definitely look those up. But for example, SPY, one of the ticker symbols, QQQ, VOO. For me personally, I invest in FXAIX, which is the Fidelity S&P 500 stock. I think it's a mutual fund actually. And the reason why is because they have the lowest expense ratio and they also offer a tiny amount of dividend payments. And so what I do is basically for any of my retirement accounts, I hold on to that money. I invest into that stock and I just hold it. I don't touch it. I do check it every single month or so, sometimes every so often, like in a week. But for that money, I hold and I never sell, right? Even if there's a downturn. Like for example, last week, Trump's tariff, they dropped the market by 15%. That is the perfect time to buy. Yes, I lost 15% of my assets, but now stocks are at a cheaper rate. So I could keep buying because I know that I'm going to be holding on to the stocks for the next 10, 20, 30 years. And the best part about it is you can make it automated too. So whenever you get your paycheck, you could send that money automatically to your investment accounts and tell your account, create a rule or an automation in your account. So basically, every single month, you invest $500 into an investment account. So what this is called is dollar cost averaging, or better known as DCA. So for dollar cost averaging, what you're basically doing is no matter the market conditions, you are always investing. So this builds up good financial habits. If you automate it, then obviously you don't have to ever touch it and you don't have to think about it. And this is one of the proven methods to building wealth compared to what other people might try with day trading and those types of things. Like I said earlier, you're not smarter than the market. Don't think you are. I personally have learned from personal experience, trying to do some day trading and everything. You have to be very, very committed. So for someone who doesn't want to spend that much time in the market, who just wants to spend maybe 30 minutes a week on their personal finances, literally just automate those investments and don't even think about options trading or futures or derivatives, any of those types of things. If you're in a finance or a quantitative finance career, then maybe you could look at them because you do have that expertise. But for the normal, average, run-of-the-mill person like you and I would recommend you only look at stocks, you only buy and hold for the long term. Okay, so we talked about stocks. The other thing now is kind of talking about how to budget and how to allocate your money. So there's a rule called the 50-30-20 rule. And what this basically is, 50% of your income should go towards your general needs. So think about really housing, all those different types of things, the essentials that you need to survive. 30% should go towards your wants. So let's say you really enjoy, you're a foodie and you enjoy eating out. 30% of that would go towards restaurants, any entertainment, all those different types of things. So things that are not essential, but things that you still want, right? And then the last 20% is things that you should invest and you should save. So let's exclude the wants and needs for now. Let's look at directly the savings. So when you're looking at your savings account, there's a specific order in terms of what you want to invest in first. So the very first thing is building up an emergency fund. So this is a fund that would cover 3 to 6 months of your expenses. And this would basically be covering any rainy days, any, for example, health care bills, any accidents that you might get into, unexpected costs within your life. And so when you're younger, honestly speaking, it might be a little bit lower because you don't have to worry too much about those types of responsibilities. So maybe you only need 1 to 2 months. But when you're a lot older, you would want to build up all the way to the point of a 6-month emergency expense fund. So what does that mean? If I spend, let's say, $4,000 every single month, a 6-month emergency expense fund would be $24,000. And you want that to be liquid being all cash within a bank account. And within the bank account, you could probably have it in a high yield savings account. For me, I use SoFi, and their current ongoing rate is 3.8% APY, which means at the end of the year, I basically get 3 cents for every dollar that I invest. Other accounts might be a little bit higher, some might be lower, but as long as you're parking it into a high yield savings account, that's going to be the best. Once you've developed the emergency fund, the next thing to do is invest into your tax advantaged accounts. And so what is that? That's your 401k, that's your IRAs, that's your HSAs. So within the US, those are the three accounts that you could do that will give you the most advantage from a tax perspective. So what does that mean? So for example, when people say Roth basically means that any deposits that you make into your account is taxed, but anything that grows within the account and also anything that is withdrawn from the account at retirement age is not taxed. So those are the three different types of taxes. In a Roth IRA and a normal IRA are basically double tax advantaged, which means that out of those three areas, you're not going to get taxed in two of them. So that goes for, IRAs, that goes for 401ks. And then for the HSA is a health savings account, and it will, if you're on a healthcare plan, then you're going to have access to it. For an HSA, this is triple tax advantage, but the caveat is that you could only spend it on things related to healthcare, as the name kind of insists. So any money that you deposit is pre-tax. Any money that is earned within the account, like let's say dividends, growth, capital gains, all those different types of things, all of that will also not be taxed. And then lastly, when you withdraw the money, it is also not taxed. And you think about it, the normal American is probably getting taxed at like 20-30% of their income every single year, depending on your age or depending on your tax bracket. And so having those tax advantage accounts are going to work wonders for you, especially during retirement age. So you want to max out those three accounts first. I don't have the specific numbers, but I believe HSA is maybe around $4,000, $5,000 yearly contribution. 401k is like $23,500. And then the IRA is around $7,000. So that in itself is around $35,000, $36,000 in terms of total investing. And if you could reach that as an average investor, that's really, really good. That means you're already ahead of the curve. But let's say you maxed out all three of those accounts and there's more that you need to get done. Then for everything else on top of it, then you could do a normal brokerage account. So these brokerage accounts are unfortunately taxed, but any additional investments might be going into this area. So think about, general stocks, S&P 500, all those different types of things. The other thing in terms of investing that you could look at is other asset groups. So for example, real estate, cryptocurrency, all those different types of things, they all have their pros and cons. And honestly speaking, I don't think any one asset class is a lot better. For example, real estate might get you higher returns. You're going to be able to build up equity in the house that you're investing in. But the thing is, it takes substantially more time. There's a bunch of phantom costs. There's closing costs associated with it. And so when you think about the cash on cash return for real estate, it might be, higher than, for example, the annual returns of the stock market. But the thing is, you're also investing a lot of time, energy, resources. So there are trade-offs. And so you would have to do your own research in terms of deciding which one is best. If you want the most hands-off investment style, the best thing to do is just buy and hold stocks because you literally never have to touch it and they will continue to pay you every single year, especially with dividend stocks. There are some dividend stocks like SCHD who have like a dividend yield of like 4% or so. And that basically means every quarter they pay you 1% of the total stock price, which is, it's cash flow for you, right? You could use that money to reinvest. You could use it to, for your expenses. And so when you're thinking about improving your finances, going back to the 50-30-20 rule, that's kind of the general baseline. The closer that you could get the 20% all the way up to, for example, 50%, the earlier that you could retire and the earlier that you could achieve financial freedom. And so you have to think about cutting all the costs in your life that you might not need and living below your means. But on top of that, also being able to increase your income. So what does increasing your income look like? You have the very generic, get a promotion, get a raise in your job hop every couple of years, right? Every 2 to 3 years, you should job hop. It's proven that you get paid a lot more once you do the job hop. You could also start a side hustle. You do anything like e-commerce related, agencies, even like lawn care, pet care, maybe an online business. Those different types of things can also bring you income. But the most important thing when you think about it from an income generation perspective is this skill set that you're developing, right? For anyone who's very early on in their 20s or maybe even in high school, your value is derived by how much value you could generate. In other words, you are paid how hard you are to replace. And so if you think about it as a high school student, you probably don't have that many skills. You've taken classes, but it's not applicable for generating other people value, saving them time, making them more money. And so at that level, the most you can make is probably a minimum wage job, right? Because anyone can do a minimum wage job. Let's say you're more specialized. Let's say now you get like a certificate in, you're able to teach swimming. Now you think about it, not everyone can teach swimming, so therefore you're paid a little bit more compared to a minimum wage job. Now, let's say you get a certificate for being a nurse or something. Now even fewer people can be a nurse, and you're harder to replace because there's less nurses in the world overall. So you get paid more. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying about a lot of how much you earn is based off of how much money, time, or efficiency that you could generate for other people. And so when you're young, it's amazing to be able to look at those, six-figure software engineering jobs, or, the 500,000 entry-level salary for quantitative finance roles, which are great because those roles, you require a very technical skill set that not a lot of people know how to do. But when you're younger, the main thing that you want to learn is learn skills that are applicable, right? So you think about any career, there's going to be some level of interpersonal communication. There's going to be some level of sales. There's going to be some level of marketing, service delivery, technical skill sets, all those different types of things. Even things like psychology, negotiation, all those types of things are going to be things that you could add onto your skill set. And the thing is, a skill set is not linear, right? When you are developing your skills, they stack exponentially on top of each other. So you think about it, like for example, a YouTuber, right? A YouTuber who can only make videos and has no video editing experience might not be able to generate that much revenue on YouTube. But for example, if they now have, editing experience, they know how to market, they know how to do search engine optimization, they know how to write the best descriptions, they know how to do affiliate marketing, all those different types of things to monetize their content, then the amount of value that they're generating is exponential in a sense. And so when you're early on in your career, the most important thing that you could do is learn. And what does that mean? That means getting internships. That means taking advantage of classes. That means doing your research and doing your own learning through like books, podcasts, whatever medium that you enjoy. And so that way that you could boost your overall potential earlier, right? So for example, for me, I got into a digital marketing agency at the very beginning of 2023. I honestly ran the agency for around 6 to 7 months until it became very stressful. But during that time, I learned a lot about sales. I learned about digital advertising. I learned about how to do outreach. So like, for example, cold DMs, cold emails, all those different types of things. And I was able to apply that to my corporate career even, right? So with my corporate career, there's a project in the advertising space, and I was able to provide value there because I had the skill set already. And that's how I got staffed on the project. That's how, I'm increasing my performance bonus because I'm doing work that is generating the firm, my company, more money. And if you think about it from an other perspective, right? One of the other things that I've been doing on the side has just been learning about finances, learning about how to evaluate businesses. And that's also given me opportunities too. I can now apply to higher paying roles in, like, for example, mergers and acquisition roles or private equity roles because I already have that skill set. So that's one of the things that you have to consider. Build your skills early and often, and that's how you're going to increase your income over time. And so your peak earning years are, late 30s, 40s, and your early 50s. And then after close to retirement age, it drops off. And so when you're looking for a job, I wouldn't get too hung up on the amount that you're making. Clearly, it's everyone wishes that they would get paid more, but take every single opportunity as an opportunity to learn, right? At your job, you should either be learning or earning, and preferably both. If you're doing both at the same time, you are in the best position possible. So that was a little bit of a side tangent in terms of all the different ways that you could increase your income and then also cut your expenses. For personal finance as a whole, it is very personal from people to people, right? Going back to our main discussion, there is a balance to personal finance where it's like you're living very cheaply and, you're frugal, but some other people might call you cheap. And then also the other mentality of balling out and spending all your money. And it really depends on what situation you come from. Like if your parents are well off and they could support you throughout college and, you don't graduate with any student loan debts, then by all means, you have that opportunity because you have that level of freedom that other people might not have. But for example, if if you didn't really go to a great school, or, you do graduate with student loan debts and there's other challenges that you're facing, you will have to be a little bit more stringent with your personal finances. So in general, like I think the best rule of thumb is not to compare yourself to other people. The 50-30-20 rule is a general advice. If 1 year you could only do like 10% savings, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to look at other people and say, wow, they're like, saving more, they're earning more, they're, investing more than I am. As long as you are able to invest at a steady rate every single year over year, and you're improving every single year, that's what matters, right? So for example, for student loan payments, if you're able to get all of that done, that means you're on the right spot. You're paying off your high interest debt, you're investing, you're saving towards your future. I believe I think it was every dollar that you save at 18 is $80 when you are retirement age. And so, I think it does account for inflation and everything as well. And that just shows the benefit of being able to invest earlier. You give your money more time to compound because your money you're earning from interest basically will keep growing on top of the additional money that you'll be making on interest. And speaking of that, what was I saying? With any type of interest that you're earning, the one important realization is, sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought. Maybe I'll cut this up. I don't know. But going back to the whole topic of personal finance, everything is dependent on your situation. So I would say the first thing is realizing exactly how much you're spending and how much you're making. You need to have a very clear grasp, because some people end up spending more than they think they spend, right? Whether it could be like credit card payments, or, for example, they don't know that they're still paying for a subscription. So you want to do an audit of your personal finances first, so you understand how much you're spending, and then after you can make adjustments. There's probably other things that I could cover within personal finance, but I'm probably just going to leave it at that. Let's move on to the second category. So the second category is mindset. What does this mean? This is basically, if you think about it, you're breaking it down into how you perceive the world and if that perception of the world is accurate compared to how the world actually is. So for example, if you're delusional or not. And the thing that I learned about mindset is there's a lot of different things that people go through in life, but you have to have a growth attitude at the forefront. If you are a very static-minded person, which means that, you're not open to new things, you're not open to change, all those different types of things, it's going to be very hard for you to kind of succeed because you're locking yourself within your own head. And why is that important? Because most likely the thoughts that you have about your surroundings are not actually true. It's things and experiences that you've had in the past that might have made you think that those are true. So for example, let's say you're interested in investing, but you got into the stock market at the wrong time, you sold when the stock was low, then your conclusion might be that the stock market doesn't work. It's only for rich people. It can never help a normal investor like me. And that's just the wrong takeaway. But if you're a static minded person, then you're going to think about that for the rest of your life. Whereas if you're growth minded, then what you could basically do is, think about it from the positive perspective. Hey, maybe this didn't work because of this reason, or I could have done this differently, or maybe I could have asked for help from someone who was more experienced than me. So having a growth mindset is probably the most important part about it. The other thing to do with mindset is just always maintaining a positive outlook on life. Obviously, there are things that are going to be terrible. There's going to be shitty things that happen to you, but you want to approach it with the perspective of gratuity. And so gratuity is being thankful for what you have and finding happiness and contentfulness within that perspective. Because modern day capitalism, you're always going to be sold more. You're going to be told that your body doesn't look as good as it is, that your health isn't as good as it is, that the amount of money you make isn't as good as it is. You know why? Because that's what generates them money. Companies make money because they're trying to solve a problem that you have. And sometimes they just generate a problem, right? That you perceive you might have. And so when you think about mindset from this perspective, being grateful for what you have is honestly one of the best medications just in terms like meditating at the end of every single day, reflecting, journaling, thinking about what you could do to improve, thinking about what went well, because I'm sure a lot of you, what happens is you focus on only the things that go wrong and you don't really take the time to enjoy all the things that have going well or the privileges that you've had. So for me, I've always set a goal, I've achieved the goal, and then I start journeying on to another goal. Right? I don't take the time to celebrate, and the celebration part is arguably more important than achieving the goal, because the joy that you get from achieving a goal is very short-lived. When I was at Purdue and I was applying for internships, my dream internship was at Deloitte at that time when I was a sophomore. I got the internship and I was so excited for basically 2 minutes. And then after I went back to normal, I realized I had more exams, I had more tests, I had, other things that I needed to accomplish. And so the joy of being able to get that internship only lasted 2 minutes. And I only celebrated that for 2 minutes. And then I started, reaching out to more goals. It's like, hey, I want to be the best consultant in this club, or I wanted to get this other internship, or all those different types of things, right? So that's a very destructive mindset to have. And that mindset is somewhat linked to what's called the hedonic treadmill. So the hedonic treadmill is kind of what I described, where you set a goal, you achieve the goal, and then you keep moving on to more and more things because you think it's going to lead you to happiness. Hey, I'll be happy when I get this internship. Hey, I'll be happy when I buy a house. Hey, I'll be happy when I find a girlfriend. Hey, I'll be happy when I get married. The thing is, the human mind is very, very good at adapting, and what you might perceive to make you happy now is probably going to be standard when you get to the point of achieving that goal. So you should never base your happiness off of any type of goal that you're setting, because honestly speaking, some of those goals sometimes might just be out of your control, right? And so when you're thinking about mindset from a happiness perspective, the key thing is gratuity. You want to be thankful for what you have, and you want to understand that it's a privilege to be alive in a sense. In a first world country, I think this might be a hot take, but most of the problems that you face on a day-to-day basis are not actually problems. They're just things that try to keep you busy. For example, today I had 8 hours of work, and I was like, oh, it's such a problem that I have to, work so hard for only this much money, XYZ, whatever reason, right? But you have to kind of flip the switch and think about it of like, hey, what a pleasure it is to be able to work in an office setting, making, money and supporting my family, right? That's kind of the mindset that you have to have. And it's really just a flip of the switch. You have to start thinking of your problems almost as puzzles, right? Because then it shifts the context away from something negative and it shifts it into something that is like interesting, intriguing to solve, right? So let's say, it's so hard for me to get motivated to go to the gym. Now you can think about it as like, hey, how can I get to the gym? Like, for me, it's a privilege that I have the money, I have the time, I have the resources to be able to go to the gym. I'm physically capable of going to the gym. I am a dedicated person, and I'm able to build these habits to build myself up, because some people might not have that. Some people might be in the hospital, they might be dealing with personal issues, all those different types of things. And so thinking about all the privileges that you have in your life and the ability that you're able to live, in one of the best countries in the world, arguably speaking, it really is something to think about. Moving on to another topic, from a mindset perspective, we talked about goals, and I wanted to kind of spend some time in terms of how you can achieve those goals. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about next is going to be from The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And the basic theme around that book is, setting goals, but also trying to be happy with yourself. And so when you look at setting goals, you never want to base your goals off of the end desire, because the end desire is always going to be great. Everyone always wants to make more money. They want to be more fit. They want to be perceived as smarter, all those different types of things. You want to think about the hardship it takes to get to that goal, and if you're willing to sacrifice to get there. So for example, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an actor when I grew up. I was like, wow, it would be so amazing to star in those movies, to make so much money, to be recognized in public, all those different types of things. But what you don't realize is the journey to get there is a lot. You have to go through hours of screening. You have to go through countless rejections. You have to memorize movie scripts, front to back. You have to learn how to control your facial expressions. All those different types of things are what goes into being a successful actor. Even having a network of people, right? And so when you think about, for me, when I was trying to get to that point, it wasn't worth going through all that struggle just to get to that end goal. So when you're making goals, you have to think about what you're willing to sacrifice for. For example, another example, if you go to the gym and you want to get a six-pack, are you willing to sacrifice 30 minutes to an hour every single day to show up and be consistent? Are you willing to drink a protein shake every single day? Are you willing to get 8 hours of sleep? Are you willing to eat healthier every single day? Think about it from a sacrifice perspective more so than an end goal. And the other thing is, when you're setting goals, you don't want to set goals as an output base. Whereas, for example, with the ab example, right? You don't want to say, hey, I want to get six-pack abs, right? Because arguably speaking, that's like kind of out of your control, right? Maybe you have genetics, worse genetics, or, it's not something very tangible. So when you're setting goals, instead of thinking about it from an output perspective, think about it from what input you need to get to that goal, right? So for example, instead of saying you want six-pack abs, make it input oriented and break it down into something daily. So instead of that, you could say, hey, I will go to the gym every single day for 30 minutes and I'll do 10 crunches. That way you have something input related to be able to get you to that point. Cool. So that kind of covers mindset. I feel like I've been rambling for a long time, so let's move on to the career bucket now. For your career, the advice that I've heard a lot from just listening to podcasts and, being on social media and talking to seniors when I was in school, the main thing you want to think about is being successful in a field that most people are already successful in. So what does that mean? Going back to the acting example, if you're an actor and you're in that space, it's very hard for you to be successful because only the top 1% of the 1% actually make it. Whereas let's say you're a public accountant at a big four firm. It's not as sexy, it's definitely doesn't make as much compared to the top portions, but most people in that field are going to be very, very wealthy by the time that they retire. And so when you're thinking about your career path, there's kind of that combination of what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, what you're passionate about, all those different types of things, and obviously how much you get paid. And there is a balance between that point. But the thing is, when you're young, you never can fully commit to something that you're really good at. I'm not saying don't chase your dreams. It's just, what you think that you're doing is most likely going to be different than actual reality. And so when you're starting off in your career, you just want to try as many different things as possible. You want to fail, you want to find out what you're good at, and then eventually the thing that you're good at becomes the thing that you enjoy doing, right? There's an example of a stonesmither who basically does very high-end luxury flooring for, companies and homes in the residential California area. And he knows everything about marbles, about limestone, about, crafting the best pieces of flooring. Do you think he was passionate about that field when he first started? Probably not. But he makes like millions of dollars every single year. And I think that in itself probably makes him passionate about the field because he's been so ingrained in the industry. But, you think about it nowadays, I think social media has kind of skewed the image of what people expect because they only see the success stories. And it's, no one's ever going to be posting about being a stone cutter or, a flooring expert in California, right? That's just not a field that most people are interested in. So you're not going to see it on social media. But from that career perspective, a lot of the advice that most people give is correct, right? You need a network, you need to build up a skill set, tailor your resume towards whatever job you're applying for, all those good types of things. For consulting specifically, you think about the 3 core fundamental skills that a consulting firm is looking for. 1, are you charismatic? Like, can you present in front of a client? Are you very concise with your communication? All those different types of things. 2, do you have some level of business acumen, financial acumen? Do you know how the business is run? Do you know how to structure a problem effectively? And then 3, the data analytics side. Can you analyze data? Can you tell a story with data? What do your Excel skills, your Tableau skills, your data visualization skills look like? So when you're looking for a career in consulting, you would want to highlight all those things on your resume. Speaking of resume, there's a perfectly great template on Harvard in terms of basically just a overview of how to write a good resume. And they have a template in terms of all the sections that you could use. The main thing for resumes that I've seen, make sure every single bullet point for every line item is one sentence that basically goes over your accomplishments, the situation, and quantitative results. Your bullet points should also start out with a action verb in the past tense. So for example, spearheaded this initiative that led to XYZ improvement. Those different types of things. You want to keep it simple. For consulting, the general rule is don't use too much technical jargon, like keep it simple. But for example, for other roles like computer science, maybe it's better to make it a little bit more technical oriented. But the other thing is just always learn from senior mentors. It's, you don't usually want to go to someone and just say like, hey, can you mentor me? Like that's just not the right way to approach it. But if you have a friend, you have someone that you're connected to that would be able to teach you the ropes, be able to answer any of your ad hoc questions about your career path, about what expectations to have, like how to best create a resume. All those types of things are going to put you miles ahead about other people because you're basically reducing the amount of time that it takes for you to acquire knowledge. And at the same time, what you're doing is reducing the amount of mistakes that you could possibly make. For seniors or mentors or whoever, they're going to tell you all the different mistakes, lessons that they learned, and it's easy for them to assess what you should do in your position given your current situation. So you save so much time just questioning what tasks you should be focused on and all those different types of things because you have someone who's already done that type of work in the past. From another career perspective, as we touched upon earlier, money isn't necessarily the most important thing early on. It's definitely great to get paid more, but you want to be developing a skill set and you want to be developing a network. The best thing that you could do for your career is just be someone that people can rely on to get shit done, right? If you're the go-to person in your company for a specific task, people know that you do great work, people know that you're reliable, people know that you try your best, that you come in with a positive attitude. That in itself is 90% of the way there in terms of getting a successful career and starting out. Nothing else really matters outside of those different factors because people can see that you're genuine, people can see that you're hardworking, and you take everything, seriously in that sense. That's kind of the way that it's been for consulting. That's the way that I've seen for other industries as well. And the best part about it is people will remember that. When you are at your career right now, for example, the other analysts, right, that I've done work with, people my age who graduated college, been starting to work at the same time, I will be working with them very hand in hand. And let's say 10, 20 years from now, they're probably going to be like C-suite of a company. They're going to be VP, all these different level positions. And at that point, they might depend on me for something because they know that I do great work, because they know that I'm reliable, right? So those relationships, they take a lot of time to be able to blossom and reap the rewards. But the thing is, relationship goodwill compounds a lot higher than money. If someone trusts you, if someone knows that you're reliable, they will always prioritize you. So keep that in perspective. The other thing, if that doesn't happen to you, like let's say you're trying your best and you're getting work done and your manager doesn't recognize you, you're not getting the promotions you need, then so be it. Leave the company, find something new. All right, that's actually another reason why it's very important to start an emergency fund, because let's say you do get laid off, or let's say you do want to take a little bit of a break to search for another job. That's going to help cover your losses there. Cool. Next, moving on is the health perspective. So for health, I kind of divide it up into, I guess, like three things. So there's like social health, there's physical health, and there's mental health. We talked about mental health a lot, so let's talk about physical health next. Generally speaking, people just don't get enough exercise this day and age. So the easiest thing that you could do to stand out compared to the rest of the population is just get 10,000 steps every single day. Very simple, probably takes like 30, 40, 50 minutes of walking. And if you could do it on like a walking treadmill in your room or something, that reduces the amount of time that you might need to dedicate, right? Some people might say, I don't have time to go to the gym and walk for 50 minutes. Okay, then, do something else. On top of that, especially for young men, I think one of the best things that you could do is go to the gym. It builds a lot of personal discipline. It It makes you feel better about yourself. It increases your self-confidence, all those different types of things. And it helps you develop that mindset for other areas of your life. If you're consistent at the gym, most likely you're probably going to be consistent everywhere else, because, the gym, being able to get to the point where you could bench like 225 or, get really jacked, that takes a level of dedication that a lot of people don't have, right? It's almost a status symbol, because you could say to other people, hey, I work 2-3 hours every single day on top of my current workload, and I've been able to achieve this goal. So I would recommend a lot of the younger men and women to start taking their health seriously from like a fitness perspective. Just get 30 minutes to an hour of exercise every single day. It doesn't really matter what your routine is at the very beginning, because you're going to have something called newbie gains, where you just literally breathe in the air of the gym room and you'll get jacked. I'm kidding about that. It's just you grow muscle a lot faster when you're starting earlier on. And in terms of muscle development, the key takeaways is keep good form, progressively overload, and build that mind-muscle connection. So progressive overload is every single time you go to the gym, you do a little bit more than you've done in the past. For example, one day you might do 10 sets of 10-pound weights. The next day you do like 12 sets or 12 reps of 10-pound weights, like that type of idea. Mind-muscle connection is also pretty important. It's kind of just like having full control of your muscle groups. And then also don't forget about mobility. Don't forget about cardio, right? A lot of the gym goers that I see, they spend all their time doing weight training, but they can't even run a mile. So just remember to keep it balanced from that perspective. For nutrition, that's another key component. I won't touch too much into it, but just make sure you're getting a lot of protein, eat your vegetables, eat your greens, don't have too much processed food. That's basically the beginning. A lot of people make it more complicated than it has to be, trying to calculate the macros and all the nutritions and everything like that. Just make sure you're eating a well-balanced diet that's not processed. You're getting your proteins, you're getting antioxidants, you're getting your vitamins, minerals, and you're going to be good to go. That's 80% of what you need. The other 20% might be if you want to actually track your calories and everything like that. For example, if you're trying to lose weight, you want to eat 500 calories below your maintenance. If you're trying to gain weight, eat 500 above. If you're trying to bulk without necessarily gaining too much fat, eat like 300 calories above your maintenance. So I won't spend too much time there. I also won't spend too much time on sleep. General rule of thumb, your parents are right. You want to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. Try to go to sleep at a very consistent time, and don't use blue light. Don't use like electronic devices right before you go to sleep, because it damages your melatonin production. It's going to make it harder for you to fall asleep, and it's going to make it harder for you to get into deep sleep. So that's kind of it on the health portion. I know I just spent like maybe 5 minutes, but really health is not as complicated as people think it is. It really is just doing the fundamentals consistently and reaping the rewards there. You don't have to have a fancy supplement. You don't have to have a personal trainer. You don't have to get a super, super fancy, comfortable bed to get the best sleep of your life, although it might help. It really is just about doing the fundamentals well and going from there. And that's honestly everything in life. As long as you get the fundamentals right, everything else is going to be just like the cherry on top, and you could build upon it. Cool. The last thing that I want to talk about is happiness. I think especially in this day and age, happiness is very ubiquitous term. Like everyone's always trying to chase after it and everything like that. And even the amount of self-help and self-improvement content has grown exponentially in the last like couple of decades. Like, I'm not even joking, exponentially. The amount of content there is now on finding and pursuing happiness has like quintupled in just the last couple of years. And I think the reason why is because obviously a lot of people are struggling for it. They don't necessarily know how to find purpose in their life, and it's very difficult for them to get a placement on it. As I touched upon earlier, happiness is not necessarily a goal to achieve. It's something that you find within your day-to-day. And so if you take a normal distribution of all the days that you would ever live in your entire life, and you rate it on a scale of like 1 to 10, on average, it's going to be a normal distribution, right? So you're going to have 50% of your days as you being happy, 50% of your days being not happy. And that in itself sounds terrible. If you tell someone you're unhappy 50% of the time, it's probably not the best thing, right? But that's just how life works. You're always going to have problems, but the quality of your problems are going to get better over time. There's a saying, Warren Buffett has money problems, but the homeless guy also has money problems, right? So no matter where you are at your point in your life, you're never going to get a point where you're like 100% happy on every single day, because there are things that are going to come up. There's going to be health issues, there's going to be family issues, relationship issues, all those different types of things. But it's all about your mentality behind those types of things. If you could be grateful for the days that you have, problems or issues that you haven't been able to fix, even maybe 10-20% of the time, you already increase the amount of, happiness and fulfillment that you have in your personal life. You don't want to come at happiness with the perspective that, hey, I need to reach this specific goal to be happy. That's something that I learned the hard way, as I kind of mentioned with the hedonic treadmill example earlier on. And so the main indicator for if someone is going to be happy at the end of their life, or, just in the long term, I believe Harvard did a study on this. It's really just based off of the relationships that you build. Money, to a certain extent, will increase your happiness, maybe until like 6 figures or so. But let's say you make $500,000, the next $100,000 probably isn't going to improve your life quality that much. But what will improve your life quality is your health, is your relationships, is your outlook on life. And similar to what I said earlier about just mastering the fundamentals, happiness is the exact same thing. You get those 3 things: your health, your relationships, those different types of things. You're going to be in a good spot with happiness overall. So I think happiness was something that I struggled with a while, because I was always trying to chase after it. I was trying to optimize myself. I was always trying to set goals to achieve different things. And one of them was trying to find that level of personal fulfillment. But I think life is an experience, and just being able to go through that experience in itself is something worth talking about and worth living for. And so you never want to think about chasing happiness. You want to try finding happiness within your current situation. And that's the reason why comparison is so bad, because when you're comparing yourself to other people, that's the only thing that you see. You only look at their good sides. You don't acknowledge how much risk, how much struggle they might have gone through. For example, when I was in high school, I used to look at the best trombone player and be like, wow, I'm never going to be as good as, I shouldn't be happy about my current performance. Comparison is the thief of joy. He played, I think, 5 hours every single day. That's the sacrifice he took to be able to get to that point. And why am I going to compare myself to him when I don't even put in like 30 minutes of practice every single day? Everyone has a different situation. And when you're comparing yourself to others, you're doing yourself a disservice, because you don't understand the problems, the struggles that they've had as well. It's very easy to just look at the surface level, especially on social media too, because that's all you're going to see. You're only going to see highlight reels of people living their best lives and everything like that. And so comparing yourself to other people just sets yourself up for failure, because you're always going to be comparing upward. You're not going to be comparing yourself to, people who are in worse positions than you, because, if you're like me and you're trying to set goals, you always want to model your behavior off of other people. So moral of the story, comparison is the thief of joy. As long as you're doing better and you're making progress towards your goals, your health, your happiness, everything like that every single year, that's what matters. If you could look back at all the things that you've accomplished this year, there's probably going to be a lot more things that you can think about compared to, just thinking about it, right? So it does take a level of, I think happiness is a skill almost. Being able to have fun is a skill. A lot of people get too locked in terms of like the being able to be super productive and grind every single day. And they don't know how to really find happiness for themselves, or, take it easy, take it loose. And so as long as you're making a substantial effort towards it every single week, you're reflecting on yourself. What could I have done better this week? I think happiness is something that you would be able to eventually realize within your daily routine. So I think that was a little bit convoluted. I've been talking for basically an hour right now, so pardon me if my communication has not been as good as it should be, but that's kind of everything that I wanted to touch upon today. I think my main takeaways for this is just master the fundamentals. If you're listening to this, you're probably already in a spot where you have a growth mindset and you want to be able to better yourself and learn from other people. And so when you are thinking about all the goals and everything that you have in life from a happiness perspective, don't set your happiness on those goals. Keep your expectations low, but keep your hope high, right? If you keep your expectations high all the time, you're always going to end up disappointing yourself because things are not going to turn out as they like. There's a rule of thumb, everything will take twice as long and be worth twice as less. So just keep that in mind. Besides that, I hope this video was helpful. I know I kind of touched upon a lot of different things, and I probably didn't go into too much detail on specific topics. So if you guys do have any questions in the comment section, please leave them down there, and I will try my best to get to every single one of them. If you have any specific topic that you want me to further explore, please let me know as well. And besides that, this video took an hour to make. I've kind of just been rambling, but if you guys would be so kind to leave a like at the very end of this video, I would really appreciate that too. We've been working hard behind the scenes to try to push out new content, especially with our busy schedules. So I appreciate anything that you guys can help us with. And yeah, we'll be posting more in the future. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Still cannot do anything. Nice.
12 play.
Wait. No, I still can't do anything. Oh, that's good. Give me my 8. Which one do I turn?
We some boys.
Bro's got a year of plenty he's about to use.
Yeah, I know.
2 dev cards? Ah, shit.
Oh.
That's a lot of brick.
Yeah, it's a lot of brick.
That's a lot of wood. And I'm about to get cut off. Nice. Holy shit. And knighted? Oh no. What's my win con?
Go, bro.
Dude, I'm like kind of screwed.
Crazy in the streets.
Okay, I feel like I just do this for tempo.
You say tempo we're playing?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, I mean, it worked. I got a wheat.
Just rotating here.
Let me think. We have 1 victory point. I'm pretty sure I just lose.
I think you do. Yeah.
Oh, GG.
GG. No, I'm not gonna lie, the 7s were devious.
Dude, how many fucking 7s did you get?
I mean, that's your dice stats. 7s were 12. Can we see dice rolls in terms of like people?
Dice stats was 12, yeah. Dude, I'm pretty sure you had like 10 of them.
Yeah, let me see. Resource stats. I got 12 resources gained by Robin compared to 5 for you.
Yeah, and you played 2 knights, so you got 10. Literally 10 out of the 12 of them were you.
Okay, you wanna run back one time?
Yeah, I'll do one more and then I probably have to go sleep.
Dude, I came back from the post session. I just got in bed immediately. I was late.
Oh. There's some pretty good ones on this board.
There are some pretty good ones on this board. I think there is one that is just better than the rest, so I think I've located it.
Yeah, the 8-5-10.
8-5-10? What? Where's there an 8-5-10?
You blind? Top right.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going for this one. 6-9-10.
Really?
Why would you go 8-5-10?
Because you could get the... I mean, double resource on 8, and then it also has the or. Actually, wait, you're right. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, this is the best tree out there, I think. Ooh. Bro, Arya's actually kind of cooking with these angel lines. Do you see the one he just signed?
Yeah, he's grinding it out.
That's crazy. That's probably one of the best lines I've seen ever. What do you say? Something about trading to
Yeah, trading 3-1 for your number.
That's good. That's banging, bro. That's like, how'd you meet mom?
How'd you meet mom?
How'd you meet mom? Well, I asked if you want to trade 3-1 from her number, and she gave it to me.
Wait, you just completely fucked me over. I was trying to get you on 8-5-10 so I could get.
Why would I get on 8-5? Bro, I'm 3 versus versus 2. for a similar probability.
I'm pretty sure I'm just fucked.
I mean, you can go 8-5-10. It's available.
Nah, this shit is so cooked.
That's not bad. Oh, that's what I was gonna go for. I need wheat and sheep.
I'm just gonna be a dev card farmer this game. Yeah, you need wheat, and shep. Yeah.
Not the most ideal.
I mean, you're going on a 2. That's kind of sus. Nice to meet you. Catch you later.
I can't believe this is an actual decision for you to make. You know what? Sure. Okay.
Dude, if I get an early year of plenty, this is so over for you.
You roll for a death card instantly is crazy. Yo, what's with the 5s? What's going on here?
Oh?
Bro, I haven't got a 1.
I got 2 3s.
Oh my god, I'm getting fucked over here. This is ridiculous. Roll a 9, please. Oh my god. I see your game. I see the vision. None of us are on an 8? That's crazy, too.
Wait. Oh, there we go. Okay, I high rolled.
Yeah, you've been high rolling the fucking. It's been 5s and 3s only.
At least you got a 2.
Oh, we're so back. We're so back.
Oh, what the fuck? Okay. Well, I'm just gonna tax you now.
Knight? Sneaky little guy. Huh?
I have no access to brick.
I mean, you can get there. Just gonna take a little second.
It will take some time.
You were just going for the 2 for 1, so.
Yeah.
Yo! I want to see the stats. I don't believe it.
Hey, now it's my turn to get lucky, okay?
It's crazy.
11.
I have to do it.
What the fuck?
I have to do it. And there we go.
Wait, can I cook here? Uh, no, I cannot cook here.
God damn it. That's my brick. That's my brick. My brick. My brick.
Dude, you're gonna have a robber on you this entire game.
Sorry. I don't know what you want me to do. I'm just gonna keep on. I'm gonna keep it just moving.
Is it worth? No. Oh, now it's worth.
Give me a 7, bro. Give me a 7. I need a 7.
Oh,
You didn't have your.
Wait, what?
You had your plenty.
I did. I rolled like 6 death cards.
Oh, yo, the 3 roll anyway one more time. I'm gonna blow up,
man. What's the move?
Oh, you're on the sheet board.
Bro's got 2 settlements on a 2. That's crazy.
You don't see the vision? I do. I see the vision.
But you got wood, right? Let me yoink some. No!
Good luck, man.
Oh wait.
Thanks for giving me my break back.
Fuck. Wait.
Oh, you went all the way? That's crazy. Okay. Okay, it just goes on whichever one. I'm not the right this time.
Well, that's pretty good. Two death cards.
Double
up. What do I do here? I feel like the move is this. And it's probably on wheat. Actually, maybe brick.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you take it for a little bit. Take it for a little spin.
Nah, I'm good. Holy fuck, I just got 4 sheep. Oh, you got 4 ore?
We both got 4. You have 9? How the fuck do you have 9? Oh, there's 7.
Bro knighted me again.
Yeah,
Kidding?
what's up, man?
I'm gonna steal all your ore. Oh,
Yo.
wait, fuck, I should have done that after. Well.
Double looking like a good move now, huh?
Well.
Give me that. 12 classic.
Oh, that's good. Oh my god. Holy shit. Wait. Oh, I made the wrong trade. Okay, well, fuck my life. Are you and I get punished for it.
Hold that. Hold that.
Uh, do I just... Let me think. I guess I do this.
That's crazy. From an outside perspective, that was a crazy move.
Yeah. I'll be yoinking your brick,
Alright, bro.
and I'll be
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I knew it. Yeah. Fuck that, bro.
GG.
Bro, the dice sets are crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I think we both just got lucky in both games.
Yeah.